Did you know there's a European country where beer is cheaper than water? Where Prague's astronomical clock has been telling time for over 600 years? And where a velvet revolution overthrew communism without firing a single shot? Hit that subscribe button right now, because I'm about to reveal fascinating secrets about the Czech Republic that will completely change your perspective on this enchanting Central European gem, including why Czech women are considered among the most beautiful in Europe, and how a small nation of 10 million became the heart of European culture and innovation. The Czech Republic, that captivating country nestled in the heart of Central Europe, is a land where medieval castles dot rolling hills, where Gothic spires pierce the sky above cobblestone streets, and where 10 million people have created a culture that seamlessly blends centuries-old traditions with modern European sophistication. This is a nation that has been at the crossroads of European history for over a millennium, absorbing influences from Germanic, Slavic, and Latin cultures while maintaining a distinct identity that has survived empires, occupations, and political upheavals that would have erased lesser cultures. Prague, the capital city, is often called the City of 100 Spires, though in reality it has far more than that. This breathtaking city, miraculously spared from major destruction during World War II, is essentially an open-air museum of European architecture, spanning from Romanesque to Art Nouveau. Walking through Prague's Old Town feels like traveling through time, where every corner reveals architectural treasures that have stood for centuries. The Charles Bridge, completed in 1402 and lined with 30 Baroque statues of saints, connects the Old Town with Prague Castle across the Vltava River. The castle complex itself, dating back to the 9th century, is the largest ancient castle complex in the world according to the Guinness Book of Records, covering almost 70,000 square meters. The Prague astronomical clock, mounted on the old town hall tower in 1410, is the oldest astronomical clock still operating and draws crowds every hour when its mechanical procession of apostles appears. Czech history is a story of resilience and cultural persistence against overwhelming odds. The Kingdom of Bohemia was one of the most powerful and prosperous states of medieval Europe, particularly during the reign of Charles IV in the 14th century, who was not only King of Bohemia, but also Holy Roman Emperor. Under his rule, Prague became the imperial capital and a center of art, culture, and learning that rivaled any city in Europe. Charles University, founded in 1348, is the oldest university in Central Europe and remains one of the continent's most prestigious institutions. However, Bohemian independence didn't last. The defeat of Czech Protestant forces at the Battle of White Mountain in 1620 led to 300 years of Habsburg rule and systematic Germanization that nearly succeeded in erasing Czech language and culture. That the Czech language and identity survived this period is testament to the stubborn determination of ordinary people who preserved their heritage through folk traditions, songs, and literature passed down through generations. The Czech national revival of the 19th century saw a remarkable resurgence of Czech language, culture, and national consciousness. Intellectuals, writers, and artists deliberately revived and modernized the Czech language, created a rich body of national literature, and fostered a sense of Czech identity distinct from Germanic and Slavic neighbors. This cultural movement laid the groundwork for the creation of Czechoslovakia in 1918 after the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire following World War I. The first Czechoslovak Republic, led by philosopher-president Tomáš Masaryk, was a rare beacon of democracy in interwar Central Europe, a prosperous and culturally vibrant nation that respected minority rights and functioned as a genuine democracy. The Munich Agreement of 1938, when Britain and France sacrificed Czechoslovakia to appease Hitler, remains a painful memory and betrayal that taught Czechs never to fully trust great powers who claim to be allies. The Nazi occupation from 1939 to 1945 was brutal, particularly the complete destruction of the village of Lidis in retaliation for the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich, and the murder of most of Czech Jewry in the Holocaust. Liberation came in 1945, but freedom was short-lived. The communist coup of 1948 began 4 decades of totalitarian rule that isolated Czechoslovakia from the West and crushed political and economic freedom. The Prague Spring of 1968 represents one of the most inspiring and tragic moments in Czech history. Led by reformist communist Alexander Dubček, the movement sought to create socialism with a human face, introducing freedom of speech, press, and movement while maintaining the communist system. For several months, Czechoslovakia experienced an explosion of cultural and political freedom, with open debates, uncensored publications, and genuine hope for a better future. Then, on August 20th, Soviet tanks rolled into Prague along with forces from other Warsaw Pact countries, crushing the reform movement and installing a hardline regime that would rule for another 20 years. The image of a Czech student, Jan Palach, who set himself on fire in Wenceslas Square in January 1969 to protest the Soviet occupation, became a powerful symbol of resistance and sacrifice that inspired future generations. The Velvet Revolution of 1989 showed that the spirit of resistance had never died. When communist regimes across Eastern Europe began falling, Czech students and dissidents, led by playwright Václav Havel and other members of Charter 77, organized peaceful protests that grew from thousands to hundreds of thousands. The jingling of keys, by massive crowds, symbolizing the opening of doors to freedom, became the sound of the revolution. Within weeks, the communist government collapsed without violence, earning the name Velvet Revolution for its peaceful nature. Václav Havel, who had been imprisoned multiple times for his dissident writings, became president and led the country through its transformation to democracy. The peaceful dissolution of Czechoslovakia into the Czech Republic and Slovakia in 1993, called the Velvet Divorce, was another remarkably civilized separation that stands in stark contrast to the violent breakups that occurred elsewhere in post-communist Europe. Czech beer culture is legendary and deeply embedded in national identity. The Czechs consume more beer per capita than any other nation on earth, approximately 140 liters per person annually. But this isn't just about quantity. Czech beer is genuinely exceptional. The Pilsner style of beer, characterized by its golden color, crisp taste, and hoppy bitterness, was invented in Plzeň in 1842 and became the template for most beers consumed worldwide today. Czech brewing traditions date back over 1,000 years, and beer isn't just a beverage, but a social institution. Pubs called hospoda are community gathering places where neighbors meet after work, where friendships are forged over shared pints, and where some of the most important social interactions occur. Czech pub culture has its own etiquette. The waiter brings fresh beers without asking as long as your coaster is visible. You mark your consumption on a paper slip, and conversation flows naturally in an atmosphere of unpretentious camaraderie. Czech cuisine is hearty comfort food perfectly suited to Central European climate and working-class roots. Zvíčková, marinated beef sirloin served with creamy vegetable sauce, bread dumplings, and cranberry sauce, is considered the national dish and exemplifies Czech cooking's emphasis on rich flavors and generous portions. Knedlíky, bread or potato dumplings that accompany almost every meal, are used to soak up delicious sauces and gravies. Vepso nedlo zilo, roasted pork with dumplings and sauerkraut, represents traditional Czech Sunday dinner. Goulash, borrowed from Hungarian neighbors but made distinctively Czech with different spices and served with dumplings instead of potatoes, is beloved comfort food. Trdelník, a sweet pastry rolled in cinnamon sugar and cooked on a rotating spit, fills tourist areas with its irresistible aroma. Though locals joke it's more tourist food than authentic tradition. The Christmas markets feature traditional treats like medovník, honey cake, and carp, which Czechs traditionally eat on Christmas Eve after buying live fish that swim in bathtubs for days before being prepared. Czech women are renowned for their striking beauty that combines Slavic features with Central European elegance. Typically tall and slender with an average height around 5 feet, 6 inches, Czech women often have light brown to blonde hair, fair to slightly olive skin, and expressive eyes ranging from blue to green to brown. But physical beauty is only part of what makes Czech women distinctive. They tend to have a natural understated style that emphasizes elegance over flashiness, preferring classic fashion and minimal makeup that highlights rather than masks their features. Czech women are highly educated, with literacy rates near 100% and high rates of university education, particularly in fields like medicine, law, and sciences. The communist era, for all its faults, did establish gender equality in education and employment that continues today, with Czech women expecting to work professionally throughout their lives and contributing equally to household income. In relationships, Czech women value authenticity, direct communication, and equality. They're not impressed by ostentatious displays of wealth or empty flattery, but appreciate genuine interest, intelligence, and humor. Czech women can seem reserved initially, a characteristic common across Central Europe. But once trust is established, they're warm, loyal, and deeply caring partners. They tend to take relationships seriously and aren't interested in casual dating culture, preferring to develop genuine connections before becoming intimate. The Czech character is often described as skeptical, pragmatic, and possessing a dark sense of humor that helped people survive centuries of foreign domination and political oppression. Czechs are famously irreverent toward authority, a trait captured in the beloved literary character of the good soldier Švejk, who undermines military authority through apparent compliance taken to absurd extremes. This subversive humor and distrust of grand ideologies or pompous authority figures remains a defining Czech characteristic. Czechs value privacy, directness, and authenticity over superficial politeness. Small talk with strangers isn't common, and Americans often find Czechs initially cold or unfriendly, but this reserve shouldn't be mistaken for hostility. It's simply that Czechs don't engage in pleasantries they don't mean and prefer genuine interaction to performative friendliness. Czech contributions to arts and sciences are remarkable for such a small nation. In literature, Franz Kafka, though he wrote in German, was a Prague native whose surreal, nightmarish stories about bureaucracy and alienation captured something essential about modern existence. Milan Kundera's novels, exploring themes of memory, sexuality, and political oppression, earned international acclaim. In music, Antonín Dvořák and Bedřich Smetana created symphonic works that incorporated Czech folk melodies and remain concert hall staples worldwide. In science, Gregor Mendel's experiments with pea plants in a Brno monastery established the fundamental laws of genetics. Chemist Jaroslav Herovsky won the Nobel Prize for inventing polarography. More recently, Czech Republic has become a hub for technology and innovation, with strong IT and engineering sectors that attract international investment. Czech castles and chateaux, numbering over 2,000, represent an incredible architectural heritage. Karlstein Castle, built by Charles IV to house royal treasures and holy relics, sits dramatically on a hilltop surrounded by forests. Český Krumlov, a perfectly preserved medieval town with a stunning castle complex, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that looks like it was lifted from a fairy tale. Kutná Hora, once a wealthy silver mining town, features the Sedlec ossuary, a chapel decorated with the bones of approximately 40,000 people arranged in artistic patterns including chandeliers and coats of arms, creating one of the most macabre yet fascinating tourist sites in Europe. The countryside of Bohemia and Moravia offers diverse landscapes from the rolling hills and forests of Bohemia to the wine regions of South Moravia that produce excellent wines little known outside the country. The Moravian countryside preserves traditional folk culture more visibly than urbanized Bohemia, with villages where people still wear traditional costumes for festivals, where folk music traditions remain vibrant, and where painted decorative eggs and intricate embroidery continue as living crafts rather than museum pieces. Czech Republic's transformation from communist command economy to prosperous market economy has been one of post-communist Europe's success stories. The country joined the European Union in 2004 and has become an important manufacturing center, particularly for automotive industry, with Škoda Auto being a source of national pride. Living standards have risen dramatically since 1989, though wealth inequality has also increased, creating tensions between those who benefited from capitalism and those left behind. Prague in particular has become increasingly expensive and touristy, leading to concerns about over-tourism and the displacement of locals from the city center. The Czech healthcare system provides universal coverage and is generally high quality and affordable. Education remains free through university level, continuing the communist-era commitment to accessible education while improving quality and academic freedom. The social safety net is robust by American standards, though less generous than in Scandinavia, reflecting a Central European approach that balances market economics with social protections. Czech Republic maintains a complex relationship with its past, particularly the communist era. While official discourse emphasizes the repression and economic stagnation of that period, many ordinary Czechs, particularly older ones, remember also the social security, guaranteed employment, and simpler life that existed before capitalism. This nostalgia, called Ostalgie in German, isn't necessarily a desire to return to communism, but rather a recognition that transformation brought losses alongside gains, that not everything about the past was bad, and that not everything about the present is good. The Czech Republic today is a nation that has successfully navigated the transition from communism to democracy and capitalism while maintaining cultural identity and social cohesion. It's a country where medieval beauty coexists with modern infrastructure, where beer is a way of life and not just a beverage, where skepticism toward authority coexists with genuine warmth once trust is earned, and where a small nation continues to make outsized contributions to European culture and civilization. For visitors, Czech Republic offers authentic Central European experience, largely unspoiled by the homogenization that affects much of Western Europe. A chance to experience a culture that takes its history seriously, enjoys life's simple pleasures, and maintains traditions not as tourist performance but as living practices that connect present to past. This is a nation that has survived empires, occupations, totalitarianism, and upheaval while preserving a distinct identity, proving that cultural persistence and national character can endure through centuries of challenges that would have erased weaker peoples.